Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name's Nick Rohde, host of Just Another Year Chicago. And today we are having former Bears quarterback Erik Kramer join us today to talk about the 2022-2023 NFL season, his expectations of the Bears, and from an NFL quarterback talking about the experience that Justin Fields is going through and what he thinks Justin Fields is going to do in year two. Breakout seasons among the way Erik Kramer sees it. If you don't know who Erik Kramer is, Erik Kramer played for the Chicago Bears in the 1990s and owns the single season passing record for the Chicago Bears. We are very excited to have him on again. But before we begin, make sure that you also go to the links in the description for our Instagram and Twitter pages. They will have the direct links to our Justin Fields contest that we have been talking about over the last couple of days. Justin Fields replica framed. Make sure that you get it. Winner will be announced on this Saturday, September 10th. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But with that, our interview with Erik Kramer. Thank you for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, and I am joined alongside my good friend, former Bears quarterback, Erik Kramer. Erik, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. Great to be back, as always.
And it's a great season ahead of us because last time Erik and I talked, it was actually a year to the date. We were talking about Justin Fields' rookie season. We were talking about the old coach that will not be named. And we talked about a lot more things in regards to the 2021 Chicago Bears. But this year, things are looking bright. So, Erik, just to kind of kick things off for today, you know, with the new regime that's taken over with Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles with the Chicago Bears, how do you feel about them so far? And what do you think they'll do in year one?
Well, I think it's refreshing, to be honest with you. It seems to me like what the Maccaskey family has finally done is gotten out of the way. And they've actually turned this program over to Ryan Poles, a combination of him and Matt, which seems to me to be a first. And I love it because everything they've done so far has been right in step to me with building for the future. And they took a team that had basically no draft picks and traded away Khalil Mack, which was not popular. But if you look at the bigger picture, it really was the right thing to do. And it resulted in two draft picks they would not have had, one this year and one next year. And I think Brisker from Penn State is going to be outstanding in this now Matt Eberflus defense that, to me, has lit the spark for the Bears.
And a lot of fans don't think about that out of the gate. You know, I've kind of talked about it too in regards to the Khalil Mack trade is, you know, he was injured a lot of the time. I mean, the first season in 2018 was spectacular with him. You know, the energy he brought to the defense, the energy, just the overall scheme that teams had to do. But then unfortunately, he kept getting injured and injuries happen in football all the time. But again, like you said, we would have gotten Brisker. So I 100% agree with you on that. But you made a really interesting comment there in regards to the Maccaskeys and being a former player of the Maccaskeys. Did you feel like you said that they're finally not in the way? When you played for the Chicago Bears back in the 90s, in what way were the Maccaskeys in the way and how did they impact your growth as a team when you were on the Bears?
Perfect example. Jeff Graham had in 1995, he's the best receiver I've ever played with in terms of the way he runs routes, the technical ability he has to when you're in press coverage against him, wherever you are at the top of the route, when he gets ready to break, that's because he put you there. And he had a great feel for just the game itself. And he came over like I did in 1994. And then the Bears, meaning the Maccasky family, decided they could do everything he could do with somebody else, which was not the case. And I don't even know what his financial demands were. I just know there was about 6 or 7 of us that called Dave Wannstedt, and there was nothing he could do. And that to me is just one of many examples. And I just think it's finally come time to me when they're not football people, everybody knows that, and they've now allowed a guy that in his first year of being a GM and Ryan Poles, a combination of him and Matt Eberflus, both first-time head coach and general manager, who seemed to me to have a very good plan, not like others wouldn't have before them. It's just that these two finally got the reins put in their own hands.
And, kind of talking about that, the Maccaskey's earlier this season, actually, at least George Maccasky admitted himself that he doesn't know football well. And that's why he hired an entire consulting staff. So, kind of making the comments back then, just from your interaction as a player, how involved were the Maccaskeys speaking to their players, or did the Maccaskey's just kind of sit up in the booth and the GM was kind of the middleman of messaging between you guys and the Maccaskey's?
Look, when I was there, George was the ticket manager, and he and I had a good relationship. Brian and I had a good relationship. George nicknamed me Cosmo Kramer. Okay, so we've stayed in touch, not daily, but like when I come to town, I'll seek him out. And I just think, though, that they're nice people, and depending on who you talk to, and they've always been good to me. That doesn't mean they've been good with everyone else. And I just think I kind of applaud them, actually, because I think everybody associated with who's ever been a Bear player or fan, the time is now and time's come, and I think they're gonna be rewarded. The Bears, not only short term but in the long term, are going to be rewarded for this combination right now that's going on.
I love to hear that, especially from a former player, because, you can go, until this year, this has been a completely new feeling for Bears fans, kind of like you were saying. And, that feeling came with a lot of other offseason moves. You had Ryan Poles come in, you had Matt Eberflus, who brought an entirely new staff, new offensive coordinator in Luke Getzy, former Green Bay Packers quarterback coach. There were a lot of moves that happened this offseason. Talk about Khalil Mack being traded, Keem Hicks being released, a lot of new draftees coming into the Chicago Bears. Eric, out of all the moves that from the Chicago Bears, what do you think is your favorite, and what improved the Bears the most?
I think you laid it out there. I think everything. There's not really one thing I can say jumps out at me. I'll give you an example. Last year, I was on a podcast, and we were looking at the coach's film, and Cole Kmet was literally on a cover 2 running right down the middle of the field. Like, nobody coaches that, at least no one I know. Like, you widen the safety onto your side, and then when you've got 2 other people going outside, you save the middle for the quarterback to pull you in there. Everybody does that, except for this last coaching staff. And it wasn't just that. It was, there's no such thing as a defense where 2 defensive players run through the same gap. No such thing. And I think a lot of people will be refreshed. I know I have been just in watching the preseason, and I don't watch every game all game long, but I've recorded them all, and I'll go back and look, and I just, for the most part, this defense swarms to the ball. They know where the ball's going. And I don't care if the guy's been there for 10 years or 1 year. A perfect example is the linebacker Sandberg?
Jack Sanborn. Yeah.
Jack Sanborn. I mean, that guy is a ball hawk. And I don't care if he's picking the ball off as an interception or if he's filling a gap, that somebody's setting an edge, and 1, 2, 3, or 4 guys are all filling inside that edge, which results in no gains often. And I don't see teams sustaining 8, 10, 12 play drives against this team. That's not going to happen.
That's a big prediction, because a lot of people are saying that the Bears, I know you and I are going to get into season predictions in a little bit, but just hearing that reaction, especially from, a former NFL quarterback, with how improved the defense. The defense last year was middle tier. They were ranked 14th overall, according to ESPN's rankings and stats. In some categories, the Bears were top 5. In some categories, the Bears were in the low or the high 20s, which is not a good high 20s to be in. So that's a big thing that the Bears, especially from a former player, to see. And I think that's something that fans aren't seeing, and the Bears are getting overlooked in that category. Do you feel like the Bears are getting overlooked right now, Eric? I know we're going to get into our record predictions later, but
I don't know if they are or not. I know everybody's in love with the Lions all of a sudden, and I don't know who else out there, but to me, the Bears, here's the ultimate thing you can do to me, or for me, is you get better at your fundamentals, and you play those fundamentals within a fundamental system. And that's it. And it's boring, or it sounds boring, but it results in what you're end up going to see over the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5. And once there's cap room, once there's draft picks, once there's free agency, once there's people that fall out of the sky because they got cut from someone else, then 2, 3, 4 years of that, in a good system, this is what's going to happen. My prediction is you beat other teams when you do your fundamentals better than they do theirs. Simple.
It's simple. And, I think the fundamentals come from the coaching staff, kind of like what we've kind of talked about with, Matt Eberflus coming into place. And, Eric, kind of want to ask you about that is, a lot of people, Matt Eberflus's style is different than a lot of the NFL right now. It kind of has that old school mentality, going to be hard on players. You're going to say it how it is, but it's constructive criticism. From a former player's perspective, what do you like about Matt Eberflus's style?
I don't know, Matt. I've never met him. One of the things that stands out is he's like, hey, we're going to get in shape. I don't care what happens, but there's going to be no extra weight on anybody around here. So get used to playing lighter, because athleticism wins. It does. And when you have better athletes, or when your players are more agile as players and have better fundamentals, it just wait and see. It happens. And I think that lighter is better, more agility is better, better technique is better. And when you put all that together into what is obviously a good fundamental offense and defensive system, I mean, the wide zone has been around since Mike Shanahan, and that wins. And then you start putting some good players that have been in that system a while. I mean, Justin, I know you haven't brought him up yet, but Justin Fields, to me, is on the right trajectory. No doubt about it.
And you led perfectly into the next sector of this entire conversation is Justin Fields, former quarterback to, quarterback to quarterback conversation here. It's Justin Fields' second season. You know what it's like to be, growing in the NFL, getting seasoned, kind of getting used to the speed of the game. He's coming off a season shy of 1,800 passing yards in 10 total games started, less than 10 touchdowns total, 7 passing, 2 rushing. Just from what you've seen early out of Justin Fields, how do you think he'll do in 2022?
Let's go back and talk about 2021. You have to fail. You have to fail. It's part of the process. And talk about a guy, I don't care what he did positively. He was in a bad system around bad people doing the best he could. So let's just put last year aside. The best thing he did about last year was survive. And I think now he's got a year of, thank God I'm behind that. I guarantee you he's learned stuff from there, just from his own perspective. But when I see him play now, is he perfect? Absolutely not. But he's got some athleticism, and honestly, when I went to the first preseason game last year against Miami, I did not expect to see a guy that would anticipate throws. I just didn't. That's not what I saw at Ohio State. And so I just think, like I said, is he perfect right now? No. There was a play early on against the game I was watching. I forget who it was against now. I think it was the first preseason game. And Darnell Mooney gets picked for, the guy didn't even pick it right. So Darnell Mooney just flat out bursts by the guy. Well, guess who's staring at Darnell Mooney running down the field? Justin Fields. Never takes his eyes off him. And so who's going to come over the top of that? The free safety. At the same time, he had another guy on the right who he could have been looking like, you got to use who's around you to guide their defense where they want to go. I guarantee you, the guy running up the slot to the side, Justin Fields could have dropped back, looked right there, and thrown there. No problem. It would have walk-in touchdown. As it was, Darnell Mooney made a great catch, but he didn't have to. That's my point. You've got a guy in Darnell Mooney who's going to beat pretty much anybody he lines up against in the slot. And so know that. And he will eventually. And there's going to be things that he learns, like, don't stare people down when you know they're going to win. So there's no mystery who's going to win. That's the part I'm talking about. He threw a ball that Darnell Mooney had to go jump up for, which he never should have. At the same time, he's made some good throws, really good throws, and really good. He's athletic. And so I think the fact that they're going to get him out of the pocket with bootlegs and nakeds, and there was a play against Cleveland where he hits a literally wide. You can't be any more wide open than Cole Kmet. You could not be. And yet it took him a while to get there. So he's going to learn that, okay, in this coverage, when the middle field closed, and I'm not saying it was, but when the middle field's closed, that means there's a free safety in the middle. And then that means this guy out here, the flat defender. So when that flat defender, you come around and he is in the proximity of your guy going to the flat, you help look him to the flat as you throw to Cole Kmet. Like, it doesn't surprise you that he's wide open. And that's what I think Justin Fields is going to get to during this season, not next year, during the season.
And that's good. That's good. That's a good way of him becoming more sound. Obviously, there's still tweaks. He's 23 years old. He's going to get there eventually, but he's going to get a lot of help, especially from his new offensive coordinator, Luke Getzy, who he's been hitting it off very well with over the last 5 months since Getzy has walked into Hallis Hall. Kind of looking at, and you kind of hit on it really well, some of the plays that you've seen out of the playbook so far. What is it about Luke Getzy's playbook, Eric, that you see that you can see that works well for Justin Fields? And, if any other comments in regards to like the expanded playbook as the season goes on is going to help Fields be a better quarterback.
So the wide zone running game is basically all 5 of your offensive linemen are trying to hook, or I shouldn't say hook block. They're trying to force the outside, the zone step, the wide zone step is at a 45-degree flat, not flat, but a 45-degree angle. And so you're working to seal someone's upfield shoulder. At the same time, as they start running, that's when running backs literally cut back and look like they're cutting back behind the backside tackle, backside tight end. They're not. They're cutting and running straight ahead. That's the flow of the defense. When you are an athletic offensive line, that's where we're heading. And that's the zone. That is the wide zone running game. And when you've got an athletic quarterback, you've got athletic linemen, and when you've got a finisher type running back in David Montgomery, and now you've got these young guys coming up like Khalil Herbert, and I'm in love with Ebner. Love that guy. And just in a couple of preseason games I saw, he also is a finisher, and he's going to be a problem for defenses because he's big enough that you can't take him on with a little guy, and he's athletic enough when you take him on with a linebacker. That's a mismatch, especially in the passing game. And I don't know. I think there's gems in this roster that people are overlooking that nobody's like, they got this guy and that guy. Velus Jones is another one nobody gave any credit to. Okay, well, watch out. That's all I can say is you got Mooney that can fly. You've got Velus Jones now that can fly. Once he learns a position and what he's going to add in the special teams, I mean, I like the way this offense is moving. I like the defense. I mean, are we going to the Super Bowl this year? Who knows? Probably not. Probably not. But I bet you we'll be a hell of a lot more competitive than we've been in any game in quite a while.
Well, I just want to put this out there is that when you said, are we going to the Super Bowl? You didn't say no. You said probably not, but you're still saying there's a chance, which is always a good way to make us feel good.
Nobody starts out a season. None of the 32, Nick, start out going, we have no chance. I will say that I've liked everything that this crew has done so far since they've taken over. They have a plan. They're executing it daily. And they're not shy about who they're going after. And I just think if you're thinking about winning the division first, which is what you got to do, I think they're positioning themselves nice in the long term for this.
I couldn't agree more. I'm very optimistic. I think this leads great into our last question of the day. I've been saying it to my viewers so far, and I know Tony has said it to my co-host. But I got the Bears going 10-7. the third easiest schedule in the NFL, according to, ESPN rankings. They're opening it up against a tough San Francisco 49ers defense, but the offense is led by Trey Lance, who a lot of people still don't know about, but you do have Deebo Samuel. You have a tough offensive line, but it's not like the Bears got worse. In my opinion, the Bears got a ton better. And you even said it yourself, they're going to be more competitive, especially with the coaching staff, especially with what they put in place, because they're working around their skills. They're not trying to make people play the way the coaches want them played. So, Erik, after everything we've chatted about today, what is your prediction for the 2022 Chicago Bears? And if you don't mind giving your record prediction, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, I think that I have not looked at the whole schedule, but nor do I care. I think the Bears, the only thing that matters is, can the Bears get better from the inside out? And can they control getting better themselves? The answer to that, to me, is going to be yes. And so I think 10-7 is very realistic, very realistic. And remember, teams get better as the season goes on. And if you've got, like I said, if you go back to basic stuff, that's what they're doing. They're going to get better as the season goes on. 10-7 is not out of the question because they've got some good skilled people. They've got some good people up front on both sides of the ball. Are they a complete package yet? Nope. But neither is most of the 32 teams out there. Name a complete team. There isn't one. And so it's all a work in progress. And I like the attitude that is being established, and it's like the players are grappling onto what they're being fed, and that's a good sign. That doesn't happen in every city, trust me.
Absolutely. And coming from a former NFL quarterback, it's always great to hear the perspective, and especially a Bears. I know I said this earlier, but what makes me feel so good about this team is that, you see the vision that's in place, and you've been there when a vision wasn't in place, and that it was just about, control and not really about winning ball games. But it's good to hear that everything is going in the right direction in, a lot of other people's eyes, especially a former player. So, Erik, we can't thank you enough again for coming on to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. I know that we're going to have you on again because you have some good news coming out about your book that we talked about last year. It's coming out very soon. So we're going to have you on again for that. But Erik, thank you very much for joining us. As always, it was really, really great to talk to you again.
Very good. Appreciate it, Nick. Appreciate the time, and good luck to you as well.
Thank you. And thank you for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. I'm joined alongside Erik Kramer, and we'll see you guys next time.